Welcome to the road to 1 million US dollars. Let's get right into the Bitcoin chart for today, starting on this 4-hour time frame for Bitcoin, because right now Bitcoin is seeing a bit of a retracement after this massive pump to the upside on that 4-hour time frame. So currently we are trading inside this big level of resistance, sitting from 71K all the way up to 73,000 US dollars. And this is pretty much the last big level of resistance before the all-time high. And after that, we are going into price discovery for Bitcoin, where there is technically no resistance above because there is no previous price action there. Now, in the case that we break below 71,000 US dollars, likely we will be falling into this next big level of support below that, sitting from 70,000 all the way down to 67.5K. But in this video specifically, I want to focus a little bit more on the Fibonacci levels for Bitcoin. So let's take a look at those right now. Now, the reason I want to focus on the Fibonacci retracement and extensions in this video is because I'm looking at 3 different ones and I'm kind of figuring out which ones I think are the most accurate. So first of all, we have this recent swing low to swing high on the wicks, of course, as always. And here you can see that we are currently trading right on top of this 0.236 Fibonacci level, sitting at about 71.5K, roughly speaking. And in the case that we break below this, I do think it is likely that we are going to fall to this next Fibonacci level below that, sitting at about 70.5K for the Bitcoin price. And this is the 0.382 Fibonacci level. So that's kind of the main thing I'm looking out for this one. But at the same time, what would happen if we now break out above these previous highs? Well, in the case that that happens, we can look at the Fibonacci extensions. So for example, this is one right here. So I take this swing low to swing high, then back down to this swing low once again. And here we get some Fibonacci extensions, right? So we broke out above this 1.618 Fibonacci level at about 71.3K for the Bitcoin price. And then we saw a pretty beautiful rejection on this 4-hour time frame from the 2 Fibonacci level at 72.7K. And considering that we saw a bit of a rejection exactly from this level and then retraced perfectly to this 1.618, it does make me think that in the future we can also keep using this Fibonacci extension here to look for potential price targets in the case that we break out above this 2 Fibonacci level. For example, this Fibonacci extension here points towards about 75,000 US dollars in the case that we break out above this 2 level. So again, if we break out above the 2 level, this would be a first level of resistance after the all-time high that I would be having a look at. Now, there was actually one more set of Fibonacci levels that I was having a look at, but I'm not even going to show it anymore because honestly, I think it will just get a little bit confusing and I will also not be using it in future videos as well. So what is currently happening in the charts, for example, on this 1-hour time frame? So we're looking at the immediate short term here for Bitcoin. Well, one thing that I'm having a look at is, for example, a breakout above this descending trend line here. This could point towards another move to the upside, perhaps up to these recent highs or some of those Fibonacci resistance levels that I was having a look at earlier on in this video. One thing that I'm liking about this situation here is that obviously we were in deep overbought territory on that RSI on the 1-hour time frame, and then we beautifully saw this reset down to around that 50 level. So now, technically speaking, on the 1-hour time frame, there is more room for another move to the upside. However, if we take a look at the 4-hour time frame, even though we have reset a little bit, technically speaking, the 4-hour RSI is actually still in overbought territory, and it would take quite a bit more sideways price action or perhaps even bearish momentum for the RSI to reset back down to around this 50 level. And I mean, taking a look at the Bitcoin ETF flow tables for today, yesterday we saw close to $900 million worth of net inflows from the Bitcoin ETFs. So obviously, if we are going to continue to have massive buying pressure, in this case, close to $1 billion of Bitcoin being bought in a single day, then this will obviously continue to have an upwards pressuring effect on the Bitcoin price. So that is something to take into consideration, even though technically, yes, we are in a bit of a downtrend here on the lower time frames, on that 1 hour time frame, if you just zoom out just a little bit, we are clearly in this uptrend still. And to me, seeing a tiny retracement like this after a massive move to the upside does not really point towards a full-on reversal to the downside. I would definitely have to see some more bearish signals in the charts here, like for example, some bearish divergences starting to show up, or perhaps even the Bitcoin ETFs starting to flip a lot more bearish, where we are getting massive outflows every day. In that case, we can start talking about a reversal here, but for now, this just looks like a bit of a retracement after a massive move to the upside. One thing that is pretty interesting on the 3-day Bitcoin liquidation heat map is that we do have quite a bit of liquidity to the downside, not that far below where we are currently trading. So for example, we have about $160 million worth of late long positions that would get liquidated in the case that the Bitcoin price reaches 71.2K. And we even have some liquidity at about 70.5K for the Bitcoin price. Now, in the case that you are not familiar with this chart, typically the Bitcoin price gets attracted to where there is the most liquidity on this chart. Of course, you have to take into consideration the different time frames. For example, if you zoom out all the way to the 1 year time frame, we just took out a massive level of liquidity, and there is even more liquidity to the upside still. So obviously the higher time frames do play a role, but if we take a look just at this 3-day time frame, it would not be surprising to me if we see this retrace a bit further to at least take out some of these very late long positions. You can see that a lot of people started entering here when we were already trading at about 71,000 US dollars. So what happens if we actually do take out this big level of liquidity? Perhaps it could already be a reversal from there, but at the same time, most of the liquidity is actually sitting at 68,000 US dollars for the Bitcoin price. So perhaps if we lose that 70K level, which I do think is a critical level of support here, well, in that case, it would not be surprising if we actually end up taking out that 68K level and potentially even fill the CME gap here at about 67,000 US dollars for the Bitcoin price. But again, all of that is quite early to start talking about because we would first need to lose some critical levels of support before we are anywhere close to grabbing a bunch of liquidity down here. So this has been today's market update. If you're interested in trading crypto with leverage with some of the lowest fees in the crypto space, I highly recommend checking out the exchanges in the video description. The first exchange here, MEXC, I personally trade on the most because this has by far the lowest fees. However, you do need to KYC. So if for any reason you cannot KYC or you simply do not want to KYC, then I recommend trading on VPN because here you can trade with up to 125x leverage without any KYC whatsoever. Now, lastly, if you are in the United States or perhaps Canada, in that case, I recommend trading on WeX because they have much, much lower fees than, for example, a platform like Coinbase. So that is just something to consider if you are in these regions. Now, if you are going to register on one of these exchanges here, make sure to do it with the links in the video description, because in that case, you can get access to some crazy trading bonuses, like for example, $1,000 on MEXC, 5K on Blowfin, and WeX also has some bonuses when you start trading on there. Regardless, if you do end up signing up or not, thank you for watching once again, and I will see you tomorrow in the next one.